guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and today is going to be movie TV show content. In today's video, we're going to go over everything I watched in the month of March. I watched a total of 6 movies, all of which were new to me, so no rewatches. I completed one TV show and I was in the middle of another, and I also watched one musical. So let's just jump right into it. The first movie I watched in March was Disney Pixar's Turning Red. This movie takes place in the early 2000s and it's about a Chinese-Canadian girl named Mei Li. She is essentially just going through puberty, going through growing pains, and one day she finds out she can turn into a red panda. Now, this movie had so much vitriol, however that word's pronounced, thrown at it before it ever even came out. Like, people were disgusted by the animation for whatever reason. I thought it looked fine. They did not want to give this story a chance, and it was really, really weird. So quite frankly, because of the controversy, I was excited when this movie came out, so I watched it the day of, and you know what? I ended up giving this film 4 out of 5 stars. I thought this was a really fun film. I thought it handled the allegory for periods very well, because we don't see this in media quite often, because for whatever reason, a girl having her period, despite it being completely natural, is still taboo, which I don't understand that. So it was actually nice seeing it in a positive light. I loved Mei Li's friends. I loved Mei Li as a character too. Honestly, like, all 4 of her friends were great, and it reminded me of being 12, 13, just being in middle school. Like middle school kids act like that, and it was nice seeing that in film, just because nowadays I feel like we're so used to, like, if the main character's 12, they're acting like they're 15. If the main character's 15, they're acting like they're 25. And it was just nice to see 12-year-old kids be 12-year-old kids. They stay back after school to hang out with their friends. They love boy bands. I loved Four Town, by the way. They make silly faces with their friends. They have funny handshakes. They read weird books. And it was just fun to see that explored. I liked how the overarching plot was just a girl growing up. Like, to make a good story, like, a lot of people, this happened with Luca too, because Luca and then Turning Red, they didn't have this huge plot of, you know, like, saving the world or like fighting demons or whatever. People were just hating on them because it was just a simple plot. But, like, I feel like you don't always need a complicated plot to tell a good story. I liked how simple Luca was. I liked how simple this one was. Like, it just made me want to kick back and relax and just enjoy my night with a bucket of popcorn. And I just liked a coming-of-age story that was about girls, because that is what I relate to the most. I am a woman. I had to live through girlhood. I had to live through girl puberty, which was not fun. It was just nice seeing, like, 4 girlfriends having fun in media, because, like, growing up, my friend group didn't have boys in it. Like, it was all, like, my friend group was like this. It was 4 of us and we were all girls. I love seeing how supportive all of Mei Li's friends were, because, like, puberty sucks. I remember when I started, it wasn't something we were able to talk about for some reason, because, again, like, growing up, and it still is, it was such a taboo topic. Like, God forbid you mentioned to your friend you were wearing a tampon. God forbid you mentioned to your friend you started wearing bras. Whereas, like, in this movie, Mei Li tells her friends, like, hey, I'm a red panda now. And her friends supported her. And I loved seeing that. I love seeing friends who support their friends. I love seeing friends who don't think their friend is suddenly a fucking weirdo. We love supportive friends in this house. Four Town, it reminded me of, like, the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, so that was great. I think they really captured that vibe very well. One of the things I really appreciated about Mei Li's characterization, especially as the red panda, was whenever she got scared, she would throw her front paws up, and that's something red pandas actually do when they're scared. So I thought that was a cool little tidbit. Another thing this movie is about is generational trauma. That is a trend with Disney movies nowadays, and you know what? I respect that. I do think parents should apologize to their kids more. The biggest props I give this film is actually mentioning periods, like, explicitly. Like, going into the film, I knew it was going to be an allegory. What I was not expecting was for the scene where Mei Li is a panda for the first time, her mom knocks on the door, comes into the bathroom and was like, oh, is it that time of the month? Do you need ibuprofen? I have ibuprofen. I have other painkillers. I have pads. I've never seen that in film before. I actually appreciated that Pixar, I mean, the scene only lasted like 2 minutes, but I appreciated that Pixar actually dared to go that route despite the backlash, because even before that, when people found out it was just an allegory for periods, it was so much pearl clutching and it was annoying. Also, like, I have friends who have kids already. Their kids love the movie and they even said, like, the whole period thing went over their heads. The allegory went over their heads. They're not watching it for the allegory that the adults can see. The kids are watching it because a girl turns into a red panda. Like, there's nothing to worry about. And that leads me to, like, my next point about the criticism. It was so weird to me that the biggest criticism, once the movie came out, the biggest criticism of this film is that periods aren't a topic for children. And I don't know how to break it to these people, but the average person gets their period between the ages of 8 to 13, which are very much children. I wasn't even a teenager yet when I got my first period. I wasn't even in middle school yet. So if I had to deal with a period before I was even in middle school, I just feel like grown adults could handle this topic being explicitly mentioned for 2 minutes, and then they could handle the allegory that even their children can handle. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of this movie. Proponent, is that the word I'm looking for? I'm a big advocate for this movie. I feel like it's okay to talk about periods early. And it's not like the main character's 5, the main character's 13, which again is part of the average age when periods happen. I've heard too many stories from my own friends, from reading on the internet, where people didn't know what a period was until they got it. I am totally against that. I mean, parent how you want. I'm just telling you how I'm going to parent, if I have a daughter, how I'm going to parent her. I'm going to do what my mom did and tell her what a period is before she even gets it, so that way when she does get her period, she understands what it is. Because I've heard too many stories where, because they didn't know what a period was until they got it, they understandably thought they were dying because they were bleeding out of their vagina. So yeah, huge proponent of this movie. And at the end of the day, even despite the allegory, despite the explicit mention of periods, this was just a fun movie. And it's nice just seeing kids be kids and having fun. And it's nice not having a complicated plot. But I do have 2 questions. One, why was, without spoiling, why was so-and-so's red panda so fucking big? 2, why are they called Four Town if there's 5 of them? So next, the Oscars were in late March, so I tried watching as many Oscar nominees for Best Picture that I could. I know, like, West Side Story I already watched last year. Dune I had absolutely no desire to ever watch. So I had 8 left. The first one I decided to watch was Belfast. This is about a little boy who was growing up in Belfast, North Ireland during the 60s, which is when the Troubles were happening. From what I understand of the Troubles, there was a lot of tension between Protestants and Catholics. Like in this movie specifically, Protestants were destroying the homes of Catholics. So that's basically what this little boy is going through. It's another coming of age story, except in this film, it's more about his life and the Troubles are a backdrop, which I kind of was not expecting because the movie opens with an explosion and they're creating this barricade. So I was expecting the Troubles to have like a bigger part of the story, and then it ended up not. I mean, by the end of the film, it is the reason why the family got up and left, and I was expecting it to be more prevalent, not just simply a backdrop to this boy's story. I did like the black and white touch. This film is in black and white. It gave like a documentary feel to it. I thought, what's his face, Jamie Dornan, I thought he actually did a pretty good job with this movie. I've only ever seen him in Once Upon a Time and 50 Shades of Grey, both which have atrocious acting. So I was surprised. I think he even got nominated for this film. So I was actually surprised with his acting in this. It was really cute when he was singing that one song to his wife. Open up your eyes, then you realize, here I stand with my everlasting love. At the end of the day, it was just an okay movie. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It felt extremely Oscar baity. That's it. It was cute. I enjoyed it while watching it. It's just if I never see it again, I'm not going to be upset about it. I have no desire to ever see it again. I'm not shocked this did not win for Best Picture, but it's fine. Cute movie. 3 out of 5 stars. Yes, I'm filming this on a separate day. Let's move on. The next movie I watched in the month of March was Don't Look Up, which is basically about the end of the world. 2 scientists played by Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio. They find a comet, they try warning the world, and nobody wants to listen to them. But if no one listens to them, the world will end. I gave it about 3.5 out of 4 stars. I kind of actually had some fun with this film. I kind of actually liked the tone it took. Usually, like, a lot of end of the world movies, like 2012 comes to mind. I still can't believe that movie exists. But like, a lot of these end of the world movies have a very serious tone. Like, we must fight to the end. We must survive. And yeah, that is one of the goals of this film. The characters have the whole must survive thing going on. But this movie took on a very kind of quirky tone, I think is the word I want to use.
Quirky, not quirky. Girl.
Like, I wouldn't consider this film a comedy, but there were scenes where I genuinely laughed. Like, I didn't laugh because they were pathetic. Like, the scenes were just genuinely funny. That's what this movie reminds me of. It's one of those movies where, although not classified as a comedy, it still has its lighthearted moments, which I felt like that made the subject easier to swallow. Some of these end-of-the-world movies, these Armageddon movies, are just so down your throat, doom and despair. How are they gonna survive? And like it gets old after a while. They all seem the same to me, which is why I can't really think of other examples outside of 2012 because they all mesh together. But that's why I enjoyed this one. The tone was just a breath of fresh air. My main gripe with this movie is the cheating trope. I'm really tired of the cheating trope. Like, why can't... And it's always men cheating on the wives. Like, just why can't we just have a solid film where the guy loves his wife enough to just not cheat? Like, that's getting really old, and I was kind of fed up with that, but... Moving on, you know, they loved each other by the end. And I know I'm beating a dead horse when I say this. Is that the proper usage of that phrase? I don't know. This is a very popular opinion, but yeah, this movie could happen in real life. Say if there was a comet coming our way, knowing American politics, knowing the American people, like this is exactly how America is going to handle it. The way this movie played out is exactly how America is going to handle the end of the world. Whenever that is. We're already seeing it with climate change. We saw it and we're still seeing it with COVID. So I think that's like the moral. That's the moral of this movie. Listen to actual scientists, but we all know that's not going to happen. Fine, because it's already not happening now. Did this film have a predictable plot? Yeah, I figured out within the first 10 minutes how this film was going to end. Would I consider this Oscar Best Nominee worthy? No, not really. I'm like kind of shocked it was one of the nominees. But did I have fun with this film? Yeah, it's a good popcorn movie. Will I ever watch it again? No, but I didn't hate myself watching it. I had a good time. Like I said, 3.5, 4 stars out of 5. Then the next film that I watched was The Power of the Dog. This is a Western film about 2 brothers. One of the brothers marries a woman who already has a son. The single brother is not a big fan of that, but then that son and the single brother spark a friendship of sorts, and it just goes from there. I was not a fan of this film. I did give it a very low rating. Once I got to the end of the movie and like hearing what the characters had to say, it was cool kind of piecing together all the subtle foreshadowing that happens throughout the film. But I was also just bored to tears watching it. I could not wait for this movie to be over. But having said that, I really don't want to harp on this film too much because I hesitate to say it was a bad film. I think this movie was just a victim of not being my cup of tea. I was never a fan of Westerns. I only watched this movie because I was trying to watch as many like Best Picture nominees as I could. If it wasn't for the Oscars, I would not have watched this film. Like, I don't want to call it a bad movie when it's literally just not for me. It is probably a great film within its genre. 2 things though that were very hard to take seriously, like Benedict Cumberbatch, and I think he was nominated for this film. He did a good job. I thought he had a good accent. I'm not from Montana, so take that with a grain of salt. But it was a little hard taking him seriously in this film when he has the face of a guy who should be working for modern day British Parliament. And throughout the film, all this scenery, I'm staring at it like, this is way too fucking pretty to be taking place, to be filmed in the United States of America. So I watched the end credits, and sure enough, it was filmed in New Zealand, which I've been to, and let me just say, people are not lying when they say it's the most beautiful country on earth. Highly recommend y'all going if you ever have the chance to go. And if you live there, I am jealous. I should have stayed there. But yeah, I gave this a very low rating, purely for the enjoyment level. Moving on. Next, I watched Licorice Pizza, which is a coming-of-age film that takes place in the 70s. It's about a boy and a girl spending their summer together. I have very mixed emotions about this film. I got a very weird feeling about it, and you know, I am going to be that person. It is 100% because of the age gap. The boy is 15 and the woman, so not a girl, the woman is 25. It would be one thing if they were friends. Even then, like, as a 24-year-old, I have no desire to become friends with a 15-year-old. It would be one thing if it was that, we can argue, blah, blah, blah. But, like, spoiler alert, their relationship does develop into romantic feelings, and by the end of the movie, they do kiss. I had a very hard time with that age gap, which I know when you bring that up, a lot of people who ended up liking this film, they tell you to get over it. That's how the 70s were. But I don't really care. And I know, like, personally, if the roles were flipped, like if it was a 25-year-old man with a 15-year-old girl, I would be vastly, vastly uncomfortable. Having said that, despite the age gap bothering me, the reason I have like mixed emotions about the film is because there were certain aspects of the film that I did like. Like this movie I think would have been very cute if they were the same age. Like if it was a 15-year-old boy with a 15-year-old girl, 25-year-old woman with a 25-year-old man. The boy is very charming. He's played by Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. Very charming, and I think this is like one of his like first films he ever did, and so great job to him. The woman was played by one of the Haim sisters, and I had no idea they could act. She did a lot better than I expected her to do. Watching the trailers for this film, I went into it thinking it was Licorice Pizza was gonna have very crude humor, but it didn't. Like it wasn't crude at all. Most of the humor was tasteful. Some of the jokes I didn't like, and yes, one of them was the whole like racist guy. I'm aware you're supposed to be laughing at him, not with him, but I didn't find that sequence funny, but that's my personal taste. But otherwise, some moments of the film were funny. And some moments of this film, despite that age gap, again, some moments of this film were actually very endearing. And it's why I wish they had a closer age gap, because like those endearing moments, the non-crude humor, the great music, the mostly humorous jokes, this movie would have been so cute if it was like two 15-year-olds or two 25-year-olds. So because of my mixed emotions, I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. That's typically what I give films and books when I have mixed emotions about them. Just 2 extra tidbits about this film. There's one scene where he checks out like the waterbed. There's like this hippie guy helping him. And I saw in the credits his last name's DiCaprio. And sure enough, that was Leonardo DiCaprio's father. So that was kind of weird. And then this movie also taught me what a licorice pizza is, because I was like, what kind of title is that? Supposedly, like, a vinyl record was nicknamed Licorice Pizza because it's black like licorice, but then it's round like a pizza. That's kind of cute. And I love that. But then the Oscars happened. I had no way to get my hands on the other films. And I thought I was going to be done with movies. But then I went to my cousin's house where we watched the 2001-2002 remake of 13 Ghosts. This is about a film where a family moves into this house that a scientist was running. He kept 13 ghosts prisoner to open some portal to hell. But you cannot see the ghosts unless you wear some special types of glasses. I heard the original was kind of spooky. I don't know if that's like a lie or not. But I plan to watch the original this coming Halloween, because this movie was kind of hot garbage. I didn't like this film like at all. This was like, it wasn't scary. It's a very shitty horror B-flick film. It's one of those movies my friend and I would have rented at Blockbuster. Like, y'all remember Blockbuster? Back in the 5th grade when Blockbuster was still open, we would have thought we were just so cool watching this horror movie because it's rated, we're 10 and watching a rated R movie. It's one of those films. I also went into this film thinking it was going to be scary because the guy who made me watch this, my cousin's husband, forced me to watch this and said, I swear to God, it's spooky. But it was just a bunch of really corny and pathetic humor. The jump scares were very predictable. Corny acting. The acting was actually kind of atrocious, except for the... no, I can't even say that. Even the little kid was pretty bad. Some of the graphics were shit, and it's just... And I remember, like, sitting there and watching it, my cousin's husband constantly said, he's like, I swear to God it gets better. You just have to watch the first 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes come along, you know, nothing happens, and he's like, I swear to God, it's gonna get better. You just gotta wait. We're like an hour and 20 minutes into this film. He's like, it's going to get better. I'm like, dude, it ends in 10 minutes, and this is not good. It could have been good. I've never seen the original, so maybe the original was spooky and great, because I kind of liked the concept. Like, keeping these 13 ghosts so that way you can open this, like, portal to hell. That's kind of cool to me. But I just think it was executed poorly just because of the acting and the very cheesy script. Just some of the lines I've heard over and over again because they were just very cheesy lines. And it's funny how much I don't like this film, because when we were trying to like figure out what to watch, we were going through HBO Max and I came across the Studio Ghibli collection, and I made a comment about how I watched all of them last year. And my cousin's husband, who forced me to watch this god-awful film, he just looked at me and he was like, how old are you? And I was telling him, like, some of these movies aren't for kids, like Grave of the Fireflies, I dare you to show a 5-year-old that. It's hailed as one of the greatest war movies of all time. And he didn't believe me. He literally told me, he said, I'm gonna show you what real cinema is. And made me watch this cheesy ass movie with horrendous acting, horrendous graphics, and a horrendous script. The only thing I liked about this movie was actually the designs of the ghosts. Some of the makeup was pretty bad. It looked like makeup you would buy at Spirit Halloween. But like, the makeup aside, like the actual designs and the ideas they were going for, did look pretty cool. And admittedly, at some point in the movie, I wasn't taking it seriously. I kind of was just having fun with how bad it was and just making fun of it to my cousin's husband. He didn't like that, but I don't really care. I ended up giving this movie like 2 out of 5 stars. So those were all the movies I watched in the month of March. Now we're gonna move on to the TV shows. So I watched a total of 2 TV shows in the month of March. One I completed, one was ongoing at the time. I'm going to talk about the completed one first. So the first show I completed was All of Us Are Dead. I started this in February. It took me until March to watch it. This is a South Korean drama about a zombie outbreak in a high school. And boy, do I have a lot of things to say about this show, so just get ready for a very incohesive review because this show was kind of incohesive and just a lot of mixed feelings. Okay, so the first 2 episodes where I was not liking. Episode 1, the plot armor for these characters was extremely obvious. The lunchroom scene where the zombie outbreak happens was impressive. That's a lot of choreography, and from what I was reading, no one was digitally added. Those were all like real human being extras. So you have like hundreds of students running around screaming and bleeding in this lunchroom. That was impressive to watch until any of those zombies were near our main characters, because these zombies are very fast, and I could see them slow down whenever they were next to these characters. I understand plot armor is needed to get the story going, especially if it's only especially if it's only episode 1. But don't make it obvious like that. Like I could see it happening. I wasn't looking for it. It was just that obvious. And then, I don't remember if this happened in episode 1 or 2, but there was a character death where they were trying really hard to like punch you in the gut with it, and they were trying to make you cry. Whenever someone was just dying, like someone in the main group was dying in those first 2 episodes, I had a very hard time seeing why it was sad, which sounds terrible, but it's because so much was happening at first that they didn't really give you time. They didn't give time to develop these characters. They didn't give you time to feel for these characters. So going back to that character death, it was one of the main one's best friend. And, you know, there's like this whole montage of them like doing friend stuff in the past. And, you know, I didn't feel for her. And like, yeah, I mean, was it kind of sad watching the actress, you know, like hang on to her friend, crying? Sure, but because I had no connection to her friend, I didn't care. I wanted her to let go. I said, girl, get the fuck over it, let go, run away. Which was not what the writers were going for. They wanted you to be sad. It didn't happen. So the characterization in the beginning, for some of them it was rushed, and just others, they just weren't developed enough. But then having said that, we get to episode 3, and at that point there was only one character I liked. Then he fucking died, and I cried, right? So sad. I was so upset I almost quit the show right then and there. But I kept watching. And then finally these characters were given time to grow and develop, so I did end up liking them as the show went on. And then the show goes on, and that's when I have more conflicting thoughts, because you are watching a group of teenagers trying to survive this life or death situation. You will get frustrated. Teens are fucking dumb. I am saying that as someone who used to be a teenager. If you're a teenager watching this now and you're upset that I said that, I don't care. Get over it. We are all fucking dumb at that age. And this show does a great job at portraying teenagers making dumb decisions. Because there's going to be times where they are, like, kind of smart. Then there's going to be other times where they're fucking dumb and you're screaming at your TV in frustration. Whether that's purposeful or not on the writer's part, I don't know, but be prepared for that. I will say there's some times where these students are smarter than I am. Then again, I don't understand how they just had so much fight in them, because quite frankly, I just would have given up. I don't have that much of a will to live like these kids, so good on them. Another thing that was kind of annoying is that these episodes would end on cliffhangers, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, cliffhangers is how you get people to want to continue their show. It's just in the beginning of the next episode, these cliffhangers would lead into something that ended up being very anticlimactic. That got annoying really fast, and it's like, you're telling me I was so excited just for that to happen? Wasn't a fan of that. But then, like, just to bring some positivity to the show, I guess, just some things I do like. The character Namra, Guinam, and there was a third one. These 3 characters did bring something new to the table, something I've never seen in another zombie show. I'll keep that a secret because that would be a spoiler. I actually really liked how these zombies functioned. I liked how fast they were. I liked their sensitivity to hearing. And I liked what they look like, and watching them move was cool. It made me cringe because I didn't like the sounds the bone cracking made. But it was cool and fascinating to watch, and whoever did the makeup did a great job. Whoever did the choreography for all the extras did a great job. And I think all the extras need like Oscars because they all did a great job too. Like each extra was doing something different. Even some scenes where there's like hundreds of them, like if you actually like look and pay attention, they're not all doing the same thing. They're all making a different facial expression. They all have like a different goal, so to speak, and that was actually very cool to watch. Another thing I liked about this show was that I was kind of suspecting like everyone in the found family group to survive because that's usually how these shows go, and it took, you know, it didn't take long for me to realize that that was not going to happen. So the rest of the show kind of was a game of which friends are going to make it to the end and which friends are going to sacrifice themselves. And I did like seeing that. I liked, as much as, of course, I wanted everyone to survive, I actually liked, from a writer's perspective, I liked how not everyone did, and you couldn't actually predict who could and couldn't. Like, some of the plot armor was very obvious, but then other plot armor, I guess that's my comment about the plot armor. They had a weird way of using it. Sometimes it was too obvious. Sometimes they didn't use it at all. And you never knew when that was going to happen. And some of the acting in this show actually was great. Like, some of the other actors made me cry. This bitch, give her all the Emmys and Oscars and what have you, because, like, she had me bawling my eyes out in Squid Game. Just for her to do whatever she did in this movie or TV show, I wanted to reach into the TV screen and kill her myself and push her out I wanted to just push her out the fucking window myself because, oh my god. But like, it's the same actress, and like, I know, like, that's an actor's job, being able to, like, you know, create these different characters and be able to portray these different types of characters. But, like, she did such a great job. It was weird just watching her go from Squid Game, where everyone loved her, to this show where everyone fucking hated her. And you know what? That's on versatility. We love a versatile actress. One of the things this show reminded me of, especially watching, like, the adults, like, abandon the kids, and the kids at the end saying, you know, I'm never gonna trust another adult in my life. It reminded me of this one incident that happened in South Korea. I forgot the actual name, but a bunch of kids, like a whole grade of kids, went on this field trip, and it was the ferry boat incident. They went on this field trip. The ferry boat started sinking, and the adults told them to just hang tight, hang out in your rooms, you know, some of which were below deck, like, hang out in your rooms, we'll help you. But then what ended up actually happening was the captain survived. The captain jumped out to safety. Some of the teachers survived, but a lot of those kids died. I'm going to look up the exact number because I want to say it was over 100. The promises came too late for the overloaded South Korean ferry, too late for the 250 students who drowned when it capsized on a school trip to a resort island. I almost didn't bring it up in the review because I thought I was thinking too much into it, but like, I was reading some reviews and reading like what the director had to say, and that actually was intentional. Like, you were supposed to be reminded of this ferry incident because it's an example of adults failing kids, which you see that in this TV show. Like, one of the things these kids are constantly saying is, nobody is coming for us. They know we are here and nobody is saving us. From what I was reading, this whole show is actually a commentary about South Korean, I don't want to say culture, I want to say South Korean politics more so. It was like a huge commentary about how children are viewed compared to adults, and because you do see in the show, like, oftentimes the adults are saved. Like, people came for the politician, for example. She was saved, and yet it took for her to say something to this military to go save these kids. And then even then, these kids got abandoned by the military, by these adults twice. And that's really sad. Like, this is not only is just a zombie show, but it is a commentary on how children are treated. And, like, that was, like, looking back at it, that was an extremely sad scene. So, despite my grievances, despite my gripes and what have you with the show and my frustrations, the final message is kind of gut-wrenching. Like, I just, you know, like, just not being able to trust the people who are supposed to keep you safe. Like, adults are there to keep you safe, but when they're not, no shit, you're angry, and, you know, I don't by the end of the show, I didn't blame these kids for being so angry at the adults. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on All of Us Are Dead. This review took longer than I thought, just because it's a mess of a show, and it is, the ending is going to lead into a season 2, and I don't know if that was greenlit yet, but if we never get a season 2 of the show, I'm not going to complain. Like, honestly, I don't even know if I want to watch a season 2. If I do, it's just to find out what happens with Namra. That's the only reason I would watch a season 2. Other than that, these kids reached their goal. I don't know how they can stretch this out longer. And then the other TV show I watched, which was ongoing at the time, was Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 2. I don't want to get into detail with this because only one episode was left as of April. Season 4 has been a whirlwind. All I'm going to say about the month of March, watching, you know, our found family coming to terms with some of the things they have to do was rough. There's truly no hero in the story. There's no enemy in the story. It's heartbreaking, and it's sad watching people argue about this topic online. Because I know everyone wants a good guy and wants a bad guy for their story, but like the point of Attack on Titan is that there's no heroes in war, because even the bad guys are gonna have some good guys, and then the good guys are gonna have some bad guys. And it was really rough to watch. Like, I just felt a sense of despair this past season. Especially all these episodes that were premiering in March. I spent a lot of it crying. And hearing Connie scream like that for doing what had to be done, like, morally what he had to do fucking sucks, but like what had to be done per se, and watching him like come to terms with that was really fucking sad. And that was just with Connie. Watching Armin and Mikasa, Reiner, and all, you know, our beloved characters having to do bad things to achieve their goal was rough. But like, each side has to do extremely morally shitty things to get to their goal. And that's the point of the story. And it kind of boggles my mind that a lot of people are missing that. I mean, even our main protagonist I would consider it, what Aaron's doing now, like, I'm aware why he's doing it, I'm aware of his ideology, but his actual actions are fucking shitty. And it sucks watching that. Like, all my characters, they're all sad. Like, even the character, like, I just want everyone to have a happy ending. Even Flock, who I can't fucking stand, I understand why he got to where he is. I think he actually, despite not liking him, I think he actually is an extremely well-written character. But I even want Flock to have a happy ending. I just want everyone to be happy, and I want the war to end, and we're going into spoiler territory, so we're gonna move on. So the last thing I want to talk about is the one musical I saw in March, and that is Hadestown. So this Broadway show is the story of Orpheus and Eurydice. I know Orpheus is the son of a muse, I think, and his song, like, cures the world. It's like a Greek myth story, but told in like modern day. Like, Orpheus works at a restaurant, Hades runs like a coal mine, so that was really fun to watch. But it's funny because I actually was not familiar with the story of Orpheus and Eurydice when listening to the soundtrack. But even like within like 5 minutes, I knew it was going to end in a tragedy. I found it a lot easier to follow when actually watching the show than when listening to the album. Because when I was listening to the album before the show, I didn't really understand what was going on, and I went into the show thinking like, oh my god, I'm not going to like it, it's a waste of my money. But actually seeing it played out helped, which I know sounds really weird because that's part of musicals. You like have to see what's going on. But oftentimes, for me at least, I could follow the plot when just listening to the music. But Hadestown was hard, but I am glad that I finally got to watch it. And the set design was actually really, really cool. I really liked the usage of the small space, because the set design reminds me of like how ancient Greeks did their theater, where everyone was on stage. So in the case of Hadestown, even the orchestra is on stage. Like, the orchestra are characters within the show. And no one ever like left per se. Like, Hermes is the narrator of the show, but he was on stage the whole time. And like, if he wasn't a part of the scene, you kind of just saw him like sitting at the bar table, like watching it play out. And I thought that was really cool to do. If you have the chance to see Hadestown, I would actually highly recommend it. It was a very cool experience. And I loved it. Like, mostly everyone, the people behind us didn't, but mostly everyone, when I was eavesdropping on conversations after the show, had a very good time watching it. And that is it for this video. This video is coming out so late. The first part of this video was filmed in mid-April, and then life got in the way and I could not film it and film the rest until, what day is it today? May 8th on Mother's Day, so that's fun. fine. Who knows when this video is coming out, whatever, but well, y'all know me at this point. Can't get my shit together. But if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. Let me know down below if you've seen any of these movies, TV shows, and plays. And without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao a tutti.